Let's take a journey into the dark and divine. Encounter demons of every shape and size, from the classic horrors of folklore to modern fiction's original, terrifying creations. Witness the monsters born of cultural mythology, from the ghastly ghouls of Eastern tradition to the bloodthirsty beasts of Western legend. The beauties and horrors of legends, those that live within us. Welcome to Myth and Lores, a journey into the dark and divine. Without further ado, let's jump into another lore. The Grim Reaper is one of the most iconic figures in Western mythology, folklore, and popular culture. Its imagery and symbolism are rich and multifaceted, often embodying death, the passage of time, and inevitable mortality. The figure of the Grim Reaper evolved over centuries from various cultural, religious, and mythological representations of death. The modern image of the Reaper, a skeletal figure cloaked in a dark robe and holding a scythe, has its roots in European medieval and early Renaissance art, where death was often personified in grim, skeletal form. Multiple sources influenced this persona. In Greek and Roman mythology, the personifications of death were Thanatos and Hades, respectively. Thanatos was a god, often depicted as a winged young man, while Hades, the god of the underworld, was more commonly depicted as a ruler of the dead. During the medieval period, particularly around the time of the Black Death in the 14th century, the personification of death became more widespread in art and literature. Death, as a concept, became something external and tangible. The image of a skeletal figure with a scythe arose as a means of expressing death's sudden and indiscriminate nature, cutting down lives in an instant. A prominent theme in medieval Europe, the danse macabre, or dance of death, symbolized the fact that death comes for everyone, regardless of social status, wealth, or age. In these depictions, death was often personified by a skeleton leading people to their graves. The Grim Reaper's symbolism was tied to this theme, representing death's democratic and inevitable nature. The Grim Reaper's appearance. The modern depiction of the Grim Reaper is highly symbolic. The scythe. The scythe is perhaps the most iconic feature of the Grim Reaper. It is traditionally used for harvesting crops, symbolizing the cutting down of life. Much like crops are harvested at the end of the growing season, the scythe thus represents the harvesting of souls, suggesting that death comes to gather the living at the end of their time. The hooded robe. The robe is often dark or black, symbolizing the unknown and the void. The hood represents the anonymity of death. It is faceless, impartial, and unstoppable. It is a visual cue that death is not a personal but a universal force that comes for all. The skeleton. A skeletal figure emphasizes death's nature as a force that strips away flesh and life, leaving only the remains. The bones are also a reminder of the human body's fragility and the inevitability of decay. The lantern in some depictions. Occasionally, the Grim Reaper is shown carrying a lantern, which can symbolize the guiding light into the darkness of death, leading souls into the afterlife. This also reflects the idea of death as a transition or journey rather than an end. Symbolism of the Grim Reaper. Mortality and inevitability of death. At its core, the Grim Reaper represents the inevitability of death. No one can escape death's grasp, and the Reaper reminds us that life is fleeting. The figure serves as a reminder that death is not something to be feared, but accepted as an essential part of existence. The cycle of life and death. The Reaper's scythe harvests the crops of human life, reinforcing the cyclical nature of existence. Just as crops are harvested and new ones grow in their place, The death of one generation makes way for the next. In this way, the Grim Reaper's actions symbolize the continuity of life and a necessary ending of one phase to make space for another. The balance of life and death. The Grim Reaper also reminds people that death is a natural counterbalance to life. Life cannot exist without death, and death cannot occur without life. The Reaper's role as a neutral figure, neither good nor evil, reflects this duality. In this sense, the Grim Reaper also embodies fate, destiny, and cosmic order. Time. In some interpretations, the Grim Reaper is associated with the passage of time. Its appearance in folklore and art often coincides with the changing of seasons, life stages, or clock ticking. Time, like death, is an unstoppable force, and the Grim Reaper's scythe often represents the passage of time that eventually brings every life to its conclusion. Fear and comfort. While the Grim Reaper often evokes fear because of its association with death, it can also provide comfort. In some cultures, the Grim Reaper is seen not as a harbinger of terror, but as a guide to the afterlife, a figure who helps souls move from the earthly realm to the next stage of existence. This duality of fear and comfort is central to how the Grim Reaper is perceived in different cultures and contexts. Cultural interpretations. While the Grim Reaper is most commonly associated with Western traditions, the archetype of a death personification is found across the world. In Mexican culture, death is often personified as La Catrina, a skeletal figure dressed in elaborate clothing and adorned with flowers. This representation, especially prominent during the Day of the Dead, reflects a more celebratory view of death, emphasizing remembrance and honoring deceased loved ones. In Japan, Shinigami, or death gods, function similarly to the Grim Reaper, although they often take on more varied forms, from beautiful, otherworldly beings to darker, more sinister figures. Shinigami are sometimes depicted as guides for the deceased, like the Reaper, helping souls transition to the afterlife. In Norse mythology, there's also a figure of death, Hel, the goddess of the underworld. While not identical to the Grim Reaper, she represents death as a realm, offering a different perspective on the afterlife. In Slavic traditions, Moroska, or Father Frost, was sometimes associated with death, personified as a cold, wintry figure who could be both benevolent and fatal, depending on the legend. Psychological and existential themes. The Reaper is a central figure in existential reflections on mortality. It embodies human fear and fascination with death and what lies beyond. Its symbolic weight often prompts us to confront our own fears and uncertainties, making it both a cultural and personal figure. The Reaper also emphasizes the universal nature of death. No one can escape it, regardless of status, wealth, or power. In modern contexts, the Grim Reaper's imagery is often used to explore themes of fate, the unknown, and life's impermanence, resonating deeply with existential concerns in literature, film, and art. The Grim Reaper, in all its forms, is a complex symbol that intertwines cultural, spiritual, and philosophical themes. It embodies death, not as an end, but as an inevitable part of existence, offering a rich landscape for contemplation on life, mortality, and what may come after. Its figure, though often haunting, invites reflection on the transient nature of life and the mystery of death. That concludes this lore. If you like what you heard, please like, comment, and subscribe, and stay tuned for the next lore. Bye.